Yeah, it may look pretty because yeah, it's two Broadway cards that can connect with a lot of flops, but the problem is that the hands that your opponents are going to call a raise with um, are oftentimes going to dominate hands like King Jack offsuit because they're going to be calling with hands like Ace Jack. They're going to call with hands like King Queen, with Ace King, with Ace Jack, as well as like Queens, Kings, Aces, Jack, like pocket Kings, Queens, Aces, Jacks. That it's just a lot of the times you're going to have what we call a lot of reverse implied odds where even if you connect and hit like top pair on the flop, you still stand to maybe not have the best hand. I'm going to go ahead and raise this limper here. You still stand not to have the best hand a lot of the time because they're calling with hands that dominate you pre-flop. So it's going to be really hard for you to outflop them, and that's even if you do actually connect with the flop because say you miss it, you're going to be out of position now. I'm going to go ahead and fold here. I don't have a read on Pumori. So I'm going to go ahead and fold here. So coming back to that, even if when you do hit a flop or the flop arrives and you miss it, which is going to happen like 2/3 of the time, it's going to be tough for you to take it down even because you're out of position now. And yeah, you can continuation bet, but it's just if your opponent calls you, maybe he's loose or maybe you don't have a read on him. You're just gonna really have no idea where you're at and have to end up just folding the hand after you've put in your pre-flop raise as well as your continuation bet, and it's just gonna get messy. Or you potentially put in a lot of money with what you think is the best hand, and your opponent has you dominated because they've outkicked you, your king jack type hand. Or you just don't connect with the flop. So that's why I just don't think it's going to be profitable for you to raise those hands being out of position. Now, when you're in position, like I think you can raise a very wide range of hands, like 4-3 offsuit, that sort of thing, just because your positional advantage will allow you to make up for the fact that you have a much weaker starting hand. So here in this hand, I chose to flat call this guy's min raise because I don't really want to start building the pot massively with pocket nines, and I do have M on the button, so I don't mind seeing a flop and then jacking the flop up if I do like the flop, or potentially stealing it if I sense that everyone's weak. Not that with pocket nines, it's not really a hand that you really need to steal because either if everyone's weak, you generally might have or likely have the best hand, or if people are playing strongly, it's with overcards on the flop, there's a high chance that you don't have a strong hand. So here's an interesting spot where I've picked up King Jack offsuit, and people kind of get into a lot of trouble. This is where a lot of newer players they'll simply call. They'll be like, well, it's not strong enough to fold, but it's not weak enough to fold, but it's not strong enough to raise, so I'm just going to call. But I think calling is actually probably the worst play in this spot here, and I can't stress that enough, and I want to explain why, and I really want you guys to really like think about why I'm saying, well, calling is the worst play here. And the reason being, and I kind of alluded to it when I'm talking about playing like King Jack offsuit out of position, is that if you're calling his raise, a lot of the times what he's raising with are hands that you dominate, like Ace Jack or Ace King or Pocket Queens or even like King Queen type hands. And if you're calling, what you're doing when you call is you really narrow your hand range, your perceived hand range to your opponents, because they know that if you actually had a good hand, you'd probably be raising, and if you actually had a terrible hand, you'd probably be folding. So they know exactly that you're sitting on like a hand like King Jack offsuit, or a hand like pocket eights, or all those like marginal hands that people just love to call with. And the problem being is that they don't really take initiative and the aggressive stance in the pot. So you really, if you're just simply calling, you limit the range of hands that you can really represent post flop. So the reason I like either folding, which I did there, or if the guy's really loose, I don't mind a 3-bet either, because then you take control of the hand. You widen your range of hands actually or at least the strength of your range, because then you continue to rep. Well, he's going to be guessing, well, is this guy sitting on like a premium pocket pair, or that sort of hand. And I'm going to go ahead. I have a strong hand here. This guy seems to be splashed around a bit. I'm going to go ahead and raise him up to $4 here with Ace 10 offsuit. I am in the blinds. I am out of position, but I think my hand strength warrants raising him up. Same reason I raised King Queen offsuit the previous hand, I like to punish limpers and people generally are limping with their weak hands. So if I have deduced that my hand range is ahead of my opponent's range, I'm going to raise it up, and I'm going to be happy just to take the pot down pre-flop, or I can continue to represent a strong hand post-flop by raising pre-flop, because I can sit there and represent that I have like a pocket aces type hand or just a really strong hand. So depending on the texture of the flop, I can do a lot of different things if I raise pre-flop. Whereas if I'm just limping or calling pre-flop, it really limits the type of hands that I can have, because my opponents are going to know, well, this guy's likely just sitting on like a suited connector or like a medium to low pocket pair, that sort of hand. So by raising pre-flop, it really allows me to expand the strength of my range, and allows me to take down a lot more pots post-flop, because it's going to keep my opponents really guessing what type of hands I could have. So it comes down to there's a lot of things about